All right, so I have no idea if I'm going to be on camera or, oh, good, this is helpful. I can refer to this. The last time I gave a talk here, I presented a lot of information. So this is the third talk in a series of 3. You'll see the number 3 repeat quite significantly in here. So what I spoke about the last time, and I just want to give a brief introduction, is I talked about, how would I describe it, 35,000 years of power dynamics and kind of the rise and fall of how empires build and how they fall and how they always fall to corruption. And a few other things. I was super nervous giving that talk. I'm a little nervous right now, I'm not going to lie. And what this is about is kind of the generative process. So if you don't know me, I'm Alexandra Moxin. I go by Alexandra933. There is a story around that. I'm not going to tell it. And thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be back at Parallelny Polis. All right, so a story in 3 acts. It's going to get a little bit deep, and yeah. All right, so forgiveness. This is something that's deeply important to me. I've always been pretty spiritual, but I've always kind of, I guess I was raised in a church, and it always seemed quite hollow to me. The reason for that I would ask questions, and people would say, well, that's just because. And nobody could ever give me good answers. There wasn't really much in terms of, it's like, you're just a kid, who cares, just do it. And just because, and that never made sense to me. So it took me a really long time, to get back there, but 2020 was pretty hard, I think, on all of us. We had the pandemic. And we didn't really know what was going on. We didn't know, is it safe? What's happening? Like, it was like this big swirling mass ball of chaos that was just thrown on us. We had no idea what to do. World leaders had no idea what to do. Whether they're good or bad intentions, it's always a variable thing. So for me, I kind of turned inward because I had a lot of time, and I started meditating and a few other things. I didn't have access to my gym, so I was a little bit all over the place. I still am. I'm still getting back into working out. I've probably only had 6 months of consistency under my belt because, I've had a number of years, but that doesn't matter as much. It's kind of what you do in the now. So I had to turn inward, and I felt very weak and very lost and very confused, and it was bad. And I know that I'm not the only person that experienced this. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to give this talk. So one thing that was the hardest thing, and for me it was really the starting point, is forgiveness. And there's so much power in forgiveness. This is not a religious talk or a Christian talk, or you'll see some of the I don't know how I would describe it, but some of the teachings within. But forgiveness by itself is a very, very powerful thing. If you're holding on to, rage or hate, or somebody's done you wrong, all that is poison, and it's poison turned in to yourself. The other person, if they've done something wrong and they've gotten away with it, they don't care. Like, all you're doing is just holding on to that hurt, and it's stopping you. So I'm not going to read them out, but feel free to take a look at some of the words that, this is from the Lord's Prayer. I literally say this every day, almost every day. I try to get into the practice of doing that first thing in the morning, and that's how I start out. So when I was preparing this talk, I knew that I wanted to include the topic of forgiveness somewhere in there. And yeah, I figured, why not begin at the beginning? So that's that. The remnant. Some of you may have heard this concept. I talked a little bit about it last time. I kind of introduced the concept. And essentially, the remnant are those broken few who are basically tasked with rebuilding the earth when it's all broken. And we live in a very broken world, let me tell you. I'm preaching to the choir. So The remnant are the players. They are the people who are going to be rebuilding the world, because we have. I mean, sure, we could try to play along in a corrupt system, but why? Why would we? Why would we follow rules that matter to not us, and are basically made to harm us? If you're on the top, they're great, and if you're not, then they're not so good. And anytime people try to control and stay on top, all sorts of really bad, very corrupt, awful things happen, and it's time that stopped. So, and so this is going to get a little bit deep. This whole process has been, I don't know quite how to describe it. It's words and thought and action kind of all combined, and it's an experience. So the talk is called Strength in Numbers, and I really mean that. We have only each other to count on, and I can tell you that I've certainly experienced that over the course of at least the last 3 or 4 years, probably more. But I've really found that this is a community where, we ask the hard questions. We don't take just because as an answer. And we try to build things better. The whole origin of Parallel Nepalis, when I spoke to the founders a couple of years ago, was that, it's not about fighting the system or burning the system down. It's about building a better way. So rather than fighting, in the current system, it's all about, left and right and black and white. And everything is shades of gray, really. So, let's stop fighting and let's stop building. Let's start building. So there's a process to this. Gratitude is very important. The feeling of home is very important. And action is the most important out of all of this. But you can't enter into this process unless you use all three. There's a concept of air, ocean, and fire. Air being words. And you can kind of think of it like using your words, creating an atmosphere, setting the mood of what you're talking about, the feeling and the experience. The feeling relates to sense of home, water, ocean. It's the ebb and flow of things. To me, it seems like water, so that's why I labeled it ocean. And then action. It's big, It's like everything's like now, and it's fast, and you just do it, and it's like go, 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 go. So that's why it's really important to have that sense of home, and that water, to kind of have that fire-water balance, because if you're like that all the time, it's very hard, trust me. And then the calming of the ocean is very important, because it centers you and it settles you, and it gives you a place to kind of experience things in a safe, comforting manner. Gratitude, I tied that toward air, because really it's all about everything that flows around us. That includes, our friends, our family, how we interact with people. Just, you get that kind of like that sense of like, it feels like, kind of in here, or like, what a great feeling. To me, that's air. And the more you're grateful about the people that are in your life and with you and are supporting you, that magnifies, at least for me. So setting the mood, feeling things, really, really feeling things, and allowing yourself to experience it all is very important. So there are 7 works I want to highlight. I'm going to go through these slide by slide, and to me these are really integral pieces that have happened within our community over the space of about 13 years. So they're a little bit out of order. Really, it all started with Satoshi and Bitcoin, and a few other projects. I'm very excited to show these to you. Just for a word of reference, these are not mine. These are all community projects, but to me they seem to stand out, and I think they're going to be important over the next few years. And what's also important is that we don't just stop here, but we keep building. So Damas.io. Some of you might have heard this, mentioned Twitter, a number of the spaces. It's built by my friend Will. He's based in Vancouver. It's built on the Nostr protocol. It's something that enables basically the portability of data. So rather than trusting all of your information to centralized servers like Twitter or any other place, if you all of a sudden get censored for saying the wrong thing of the moment, which seems to have happened a lot the last couple of years, completely unjustly so, I think. When you're shutting down words because you don't like what they're saying or you don't like the opinion, that's not a place we should ever allow ourselves to go again. So this is one way that prevents that. And basically what it does is if somebody censors you, well, it doesn't matter. You just take your words to another place, and they're still yours. So you retain the information. You'll hear a lot more about Will the next few years, I would imagine. He goes by JB55 on Twitter, and I highly encourage you to go check him out, see what he's working on. He has a lot to say, and working on some really good things. He's also a core developer going back to 2010, and used to work with Blockstream and with Peter. Ctw21. This is Hadlanat and Katya. I hope you're watching, and if you're not, well, but hi. This is their magazine. It's incredible. This is a magazine of cypherpunks. I did talk about it in my last talk. It's been going for about 2.5 years now. I think a number of us here are featured in it, myself included, and it just allows us to tell our stories. So it's kind of like 2600, but a modern 2600. And I highly encourage you to check that out also. I think it's CTDL21 on Twitter, and of course, Ctw21.com. You can donate with Bitcoin, you can purchase with Bitcoin, and check it out. There's some good stories in there. Bull Bitcoin. So this is Canada's first exchange, built in 2013 by Francis Pouliot. And I included, obviously there are way more people involved than the three that I've mentioned here, but they're quite integral to what Bull is doing. Matthew is responsible as well as KST for the mission, Bull's new initiative, which I am also part of. I'm one of the Bull Bitcoin missionaries. You're welcome to talk to me about that after. I just wanted to mention these projects. I don't want to stand up here and give a sales pitch because it's gross. But this is probably one of the most respected companies in the space. Absolutely the best in Canada as far as I'm concerned. And they have a reputation, bar none. Basically, it's a non-custodial way to purchase Bitcoin. You actually cannot hold your Bitcoin on their platform. It's you have to have your own wallet. Bull Bitcoin basically, sorry, I'm very distractible these days. Let's wait. Okay. So the mission is basically destroy fiat. So kind of a small thing. And by that, it's really promoting Bitcoin being used everywhere. So being able to purchase Bitcoin, live on Bitcoin, and basically allow yourself to separate yourself from the existing system that's not great, that's harmful. So there's a lot of things that we preach within the mission, self-sovereignty being one. So holding your keys, not buying on an exchange, and then also learning a number of other things like, privacy. Privacy is very important. Security is very important. Like, what are you doing with your information? How is it being shared on various platforms? There's a number of things, but it's important that we all understand the importance of our. How many times can I say important? But it's very integral that we retain autonomy of our information, because our information is kind of out there, and if we can keep a little part of that just to ourselves to keep it special, why would we not? Satoshi. So I would not be here. I don't know if we would all be here were it not for Satoshi, at least in this very space. It's funny, people people ask all the time, like, who is Satoshi? And in preparing this talk and going through this generative process, it really seems to me like Satoshi is more of a concept than a person. Maybe a group, I don't know. But it seems to me that's kind of what it is. So there are 3 main projects. Bitcoin, obviously the first one, created in concept in October 31 of Halloween of 2008. And then the Genesis block being the first one that has the message of, basically why it exists, which was, I think I'm not going to speculate, I don't know. But these are very important dates to us as Bitcoiners. The 31st of October, January 3rd. January 3rd is coincidentally also Proof of Keys days. And this is very important to, I'm going to stop saying the word important. In fact, anytime I say the word important, if you have a drink, please. Let's make it a drinking game. So Proof of Keys, basically rather than holding your keys on an exchange, I mean, maybe you want to have a little bit just to buy more Bitcoin or whatever. Bitcoin is, of course, the only one that I would advocate for. So the whole concept around Proof of Keys was thought up by Trace Mayer and a few others. And you basically take a portion or all of your Bitcoin off of an exchange and start holding it on your own. And if you're new to that, if you're like brand new to Bitcoin and say you purchased $1,000 of Bitcoin through an exchange because that's what somebody told you to do and you're kind of a little bit out of your comfort zone, just take like $10 and put it on a wallet. So install a wallet, kind of take those baby steps. And January 3rd is a day we celebrate. It's also the name of Samson Moe's company, which is all about hyper-Bitcoinization throughout the world. He's also responsible for the Bitcoin bond down in El Salvador, and he's working globally with a number of people. This is one of my favorite projects. So I'm personally involved with this. The ALS Association Golden West chapter, we put out, so I was asked to join, I want to say November of last year, and it was a fundraiser. So it's called Running Bitcoin, after Hal Finney's famous quote, Running Bitcoin. And essentially it's January 1st to January 10th. It's a run celebrating Hal's favorite distance, which was 13.1 miles, so a half marathon. And everyone's encouraged to run that distance over those days. And the reason why it's January 1 to January 10 is not everyone's comfortable running a half marathon. And if you're new to running, don't. Don't make that your first step. Run maybe a mile or something. And if you can't, then walk it. But the idea is to cover 13.1 miles of distance over those days in the memory of Hal. We also raised, I think it was something like $42,000, quite a lot of that Bitcoin, in the space of about 2.5, 3 weeks, which is pretty cool. It's fun to be part of that. And of course, celebrating Hal, he was the first person to take a chance on Bitcoin. And had he not, I mean, maybe somebody else would have, but you always have to celebrate those people who were originally willing to take those first steps. That's something it's hard to do. It's really hard to do. It's really hard to go against the grain. And, it's certainly easy to just kind of fall in line and do what everyone else is doing. That's for sure the easy path. And it's no fun, though. So I choose the hard over the easy every day. And I encourage you all to start thinking about that and start challenging yourself with that. Special thank you to Fran and to Asher. So Fran is, of course, Hal's widow. She left a very beautiful message about the run. Again, I encourage you to look up, I think I'll put references in later. But you can find it out on Twitter. And of course, go to the ALS Association's website. We'll be announcing something very soon. For the next one, we are going to be running it again. It'll be run every year. And at least that's the plan. We are also going to be implementing some sort of Bitcoin payment solution that will allow for Lightning. So you'll be able to donate with Lightning very soon, which will be great. And yeah, it's really cool. One of the most important. Okay, take a drink. One of the coolest things that I love about the Bitcoin community is how generous we all are with our time. Not necessarily with our money. A lot of us don't have a lot, but you can certainly be generous of your time. And people who volunteer, I love how we give back. We pay things forward and we give back, and that's such an important strength of community, is being able to, somebody's working on a great idea. Well. Maybe you connect with them and collaborate on something. And if you're working in a silo, it's not really going to benefit anyone other than yourself. So if you're working on something really big, you should be reaching out and working with people and counting on people and relying on those people to be able to make what you're working on so much bigger. I can tell you from personal example, that's what we've done with Vancouver Bitcoiners. So I'm the founder of that. And it came together, it's a reformation of an existing group that was the Vancouver chapter of the University of Nicosia. And we were Bitcoin first, but we weren't Bitcoin only. So when we relaunched, of course, we had a long hiatus because of COVID, and it didn't make sense for the event to go virtual. So we ended up, in January, I sent out an invite to my network. This is good. People leaving, people coming in. Cool. It's a nice balance. Anyway, yes. So Vancouver Bitcoiners. It started out as a social in January. I just put a call out to all the people that came out to the existing group. And it's funny, I got a message back from someone saying like, oh, it's a shame that you're going to go Bitcoin only. I'm not interested. But whatever, to each their own. But I can tell you, I'm really amazed with the people that showed up that first day. It was Bitcoin core developers, Lightning developers. There's a couple of people within our executive that are from Lightning Labs. Who else? Privacy expert, security expert, and just people who are generally curious about Bitcoin. So it's something that I've given the reins to the group entirely. I was never supposed to organize it, but our organizer quit after first month. She wasn't a Bitcoiner, by the way. Otherwise, she would have stayed. So I ended up organizing most of the events, and we usually have one a month. And we talked to, it's kind of interesting. So it's like the BitDevs format. So it's that Socratic seminar. But we also have speakers. And we open it up to people of all abilities because that's important. And we also go into the technical weeds quite heavily through the BitDevs topics. And the reason that we do that is, why would we limit something to, if somebody doesn't understand, like, I can't tell you how many things I've had to jump in, like, head first or feet first to, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And it's like, okay, you're going to learn to tread water, and you're going to learn to do it now. Okay. That's scary as heck, but it happens. And I think that's one of the best ways to learn. So that's why we don't, stay for the talks. It's an interesting talk. We try to keep them shorter to like 20 minutes. Sometimes we have two. We're still playing around with the format a little bit. But that's now been handed over to Leo Weiss from Lightning Labs. He's their technical content lead. And he and the rest of the executive are running our meetups. So we do always live stream them. We have recorded them. We've got somebody now who's producing them for us and putting them out on different channels. And yeah, check it out. Van Bitcoiners on Twitter. And yeah. Copa. So this is, so it's not really announced publicly, but I am the North American Growth and Strategy Lead for Copa. There's another one of me there's another person who has the function in the United Kingdom. We haven't met yet, but we both work with Max on furthering Copa's mission. And that's basically to invite companies to join their patent pool. The idea I know a lot of Bitcoiners and a lot of people in this space are like, patents, no. But, I mean, you look at IBM, you look at Microsoft, you look at Apple, and like that's how a lot of them grew to ginormous size, was patenting work. And, you know, I think, personally, I think patent light is maybe the right approach. And one thing that's really nice about Copa is that if you have a patent and somebody within your group needs a patent, then you share that patent. So it's more of a sharing model, sharing information rather than blocking information and saying, you know, no, like that's yours, this is mine. It's, I think it's more harmonious to be able to interact with information that way and to be able to understand that your work is protected. The other thing that's important about Copa is that the membership agrees not to, I guess, challenge or sue any of the other companies, which is good. So you're creating that kind of ecosystem where, you know, all the players within it are working harmoniously to further things rather than to block everything else and their competition. More working together. At the same time, it kind of avoids that like tragedy of the commons mistake. So that's good. Connect the World podcast. So those 6 projects that I just mentioned, and Vancouver Bitcoiners, those are essentially projects that have been kind of anchor projects within this space. You know, Bitcoin, 2009 is really when it first started, but initially, you know, some development happened in it. We saw the white paper, of course, in 2008. And yeah, there's a lot of really interesting things. There's I'm just going to go back, just review these. So we've got Damas. It's all about keeping your information, retaining your sovereignty, not trusting all your information to a platform. Citadel 21, the home of Cypherpunk creative works and all sorts of good stories and origin stories. There's some really cool stuff in here. Bull Bitcoin, Canada's first and best Bitcoin exchange, and the mission. Satoshi, who we would not be here, at least I wouldn't, without Satoshi's work. Proof of Keys Day, so better money, more sovereignty. The LS Association Golden West, so giving back. Copa, working together. And the Ctw Podcast, they're kind of a new entrant. They have a mission of connecting the world, and they do everything. I've been on their show, and my goodness, the the amount of information that they ask you if you're going to be a guest, all the research that they put into it, all the time, it's quite incredible. So check them out. They are Ctw_podcast on Twitter, and they're currently the named media partner for Bitcoin Amsterdam. They're all about supporting the builders in the Lightning Network space. Some quick principles. So, gratitude and cultivating. So if we want to build a better world, how do we go about doing that? Some of the first things we need to do is just be grateful that we have the opportunity to build a better world, to live another day, literally. So it can be daunting, like you're not going to change the world overnight. No one is, even if we work all together. So take one step forward every day, just one. Maybe it's a giant step. Maybe it's a tiny one. Maybe you take a little step backward, but you're always moving. And one of the most important things to do is, okay, take a drink. I said important. Is to say thank you and just be grateful. There are so many amazing Bitcoiners, anonymous people in this space. And one of the things I love about Bitcoin and just the sovereign space in general is you don't need to have a name in order to have an idea. And information can be shared that way, and you can retain your privacy. And it kind of allows you to be able to share something that, like, maybe you're working in a company where, like, if you had that idea, you'd be fired like that. Or maybe you're in a country where you could be executed for thinking a certain way. We've certainly been through those times throughout history, which I talked about in my last talk. And we've kind of skirted around that a little bit in the last couple of years. So I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to all the people who have persisted and who build in this space, and to all those who will follow. Some hidden teachings. This whole talk, when I was putting it together, it was the weirdest talk I've ever made. But it's probably my favorite, and it's something that I've wanted to give for a long time. You'll notice I'm moving around and pacing, and there's a reason for that. I personally have a lot of nervous energy, and it's why I've always needed to run and work out. And really one of the reasons why the pandemic and like the gyms closing really hit me and affected me personally. I just, like, my safe space, the thing that I went to for like to run it out, like, was gone, it was taken from me. So while I was building that back up, it was a little shaky for a while. And I think realistically, probably if we're honest with ourselves, all of us probably felt that way in some measure. And, it's horrible what happened. May it never happen again. But if it does, let's be better prepared next time. Let's make sure that we hold the strength within ourselves versus giving it to another person. So, some things to do. You need to learn, again, evoking that sense of what it is that you're making, what it is that you're building. Really feeling the moment. Like, taking the time to kind of like move through it and like understand it. And it's almost like you're surfing through the idea. It's weird. So this talk is one of the weirdest ones I've ever developed, but for me it was certainly an experiential talk, both in its making and of course also in its giving. So learn when to escape and to just kind of say no to things in order to be able to say yes. And so I closed down a lot of my socials. I put out a notification saying like, hey, if you're looking for me, you're not going to find me here because I'm working on stuff and I'm focused. And that's what I needed to do because, Twitter can be a distraction. All of our social media can be a distraction. Email can be a distraction. Meetings can be a distraction. Like, when do you actually have time to get things done? You make time. So say no. Start saying no. So that's what escaping under the cover of darkness means. When to be private is important. So when you're developing something, at least I think for me, it's 2 stages. I've always heavily emphasized that kind of like holding on to the information, developing it, perfecting it, many times over until I finally put it out. And some of the things that I put out that way are writing. I've gotten a lot better with that, where usually it's my first draft now that goes out. But it's taken me a long time, 20 odd years to get there. Also, be of service. So if you're just starting out, if you want to contribute, you don't know where to start, until you're really ready to work in a position, like just being there, offering to help. That's so important. And I think if you look at a lot of our communities, it's the people who, stand up and like when a call is made, like, hey, we need help doing this. And like, there are the people who are there who are consistently there. And those are the people that I personally always like to give opportunity to, and it's something that we've done in Vancouver Bitcoiners as well. And it really allows when you're learning stuff, one of the most, I guess one of the funnest things to do is to teach that, and to not teach like you're preaching to somebody, but really like show somebody how to do what it is that you're doing, and seeing them kind of unlock. It's so cool. So being able to give back and create space and give opportunity is very important. Take a drink. So build, just start. No one knows what they're doing at the very beginning. Some functional training, learn when, wait, that's in there twice. Okay, so we covered it. The generative process, this is literally it. So it's the whole thought and feeling and experience all happening all at once. When I create, that's kind of the space I'm in. And it's weird. Instead of just like thinking or doing, it's kind of all. And like, I used to always not do the feeling part and I would just hold onto everything. And it's so much better to just like let it go and just like move through it. And like the hard, tricky, sticky stuff, just like you'll get through it. Just keep moving and move back and move forward, and just, you kind of have to dance with information a little bit in order to figure out where it's taking you. A little about me, not a long bio. So that's me as a kid with my favorite orange kitty. My family had a number of them growing up, and there's a story there. That's me a little bit older, and then you can go there to find out more about me. Thank you for your time.
So your experiment is not over yet. Now you can become part of the experimental talk, and you may ask questions. There are not many opportunities because we will have to finish very soon. So please raise your hand if you want to become a part of this experimental talk and ask. Before they find the question, I want to ask you, how do you feel after the talk?
How do I feel? I feel energized, which is good. One of the things that I think I'm a little bit like a border collie, where if I don't have something to do or a mission, I get all like angsty and too much energy and destructive. So being able to actually do something and create it and present it and like be that whole process, like, it's fun. I feel alive.
So you said that at the beginning, no one knows what they're doing. I have to say that very often this doesn't go away, even after the beginning. Mm-hmm. But the crypto anarchist way is represented by my favorite quote from the chaotic book of Illuminati. And the crypto anarchy way is, if you don't know what you're doing, they don't know it either. So that's the safe way. No question there.
Thanks for the note. And I think we still can make one question very quick.
Hi, Alexandra. So I also run a Bitcoin First meetup, although I call myself a Bitcoiner. So can you tell us more about how you moved from Bitcoin First to Bitcoin only? And also, would you encourage the spawning of other meetups, for example, an Ethereum meetup or others that would no longer be part of the Bitcoin only meetup?
So for me, I mean, it's Bitcoin or nothing. I just don't see the point in other monies. I think there's some really interesting thinking around Ethereum, and but I think in terms of engineering, Bitcoin has it all. So when it comes to setting up, of course, I'm losing my voice now. Hang on. I just didn't want to cough right in the camera on the mic. In terms of setting it up, just do it. There's a whole network of Bitcoin-only meetups. Follow CK from Bitcoin Magazine. He's got a great list of Bitcoin-only meetups. There's about 40 of them. Quite a few on the West Coast, quite a few across America, across Europe. And yeah, just start. The BitDevs format is really interesting. What I love about BitDevs is that it's a Socratic seminar. So it invites a conversation versus just having a presentation. So rather than, and even if you don't know something about it, sometimes the best way is to discuss it, and you always go away learning something. So highly encourage looking at BitDevs, and then just start it. Pick a day, pick a time, make it regular. Your group will find you.